Welcome to the ROI Masterclass, the podcast where vision meets strategy and bold moves create measurable results. I'm Liat Siegel, interior designer and ROI strategist with 17 years of experience. I help businesses transform properties and ideas into high-performing assets. This show is specifically for real estate investors, hospitality operators, and boutique developers who aren't afraid to take risks, challenge the status quo, and demand a return on every decision they make. Each and every week, we talk with innovators and leaders across industries about the strategies and the insights and really all the unconventional thinking that turns potential into profit every single time. If you believe that smart design, decisive leadership, and strategic risk are the keys to real ROI, you're in the exact right place. Let's dive in. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce Sheila Burmistrova, founder of Narra Collective, Jersey City's only family-friendly co-working space. Sheila's journey spans from startup operations in Manila to launching a thriving community hub in the most diverse city in the US. We'll dive into how she's built a business that's not only about desks and offices, but about empowering first-time founders, supporting immigrant entrepreneurs, and creating a space where families and businesses can grow together. Sheila's story is one of resilience, innovation, and deep commitment to ROI-driven design and community impact. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm so excited to have you here and hear all about your background and how you got into what you're doing today.
Thank you so much. I'm very grateful and so excited for the conversation.
Yeah, so please share with us, going from the Philippines to Jersey, what is that story and how did you get into doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, sure. So my background, as you've mentioned, really spans a decade in operations, HR, commercial real estate, especially in startups. So when I was still in Manila, I've joined a startup as one of the first 10 employees, kind of like doing operations, HR, and then slowly transitioning into acquiring more space as the team grows. So in a matter of 3 years, we've grown the footprint from one office to multiple, from 10-person headcount to 3,000. So you can imagine the scale of what it takes as far as like partnering with the commercial real estate team globally that we've worked with. And really, that's my first introduction into the world of co-working, because at some point we've been exploring different spaces in Manila. And then right after that, it just kind of like doesn't make sense anymore budget-wise to like invest in a full-time traditional lease. So we started looking at the likes of Regis, KMC, WeWork at that time. And I've always had this big fascination on like how spaces are designed, how comfortable they are, how cool they are at that point. It's kind of like one of the perks of like, I guess, being an employee and being in a co-working space for our team back then, because it's very non-traditional and it just kind of like has this community vibe in it. So you don't know who you're going to meet and it's always very exciting. So there was that, and really it was love that took me here in the United States. So I met my husband while solo traveling in Asia back in 2017, and we've stayed in touch. Soon after a year, we met again, and really that's when we kind of like started to have a relationship and building, like what's in it for us in the future. So we transitioned, and basically I decided to take the leap of faith and move here in the United States in 2019. And that was a huge change for me because I've been always surrounded by a big team in the corporate space back then, and then kind of like slowly assimilating to a new culture, a new way of working and things like that. And that really shifted my perspective and my values and what I wanted to do next. Fast forward to 2020, COVID happened, and we also moved from New York City to Jersey City and have started to look into starting a family. This is a big part of my story, but I've had a struggle with my fertility journey. And so I had to go through 4 rounds of in vitro vitro fertilization. After years and years of trying, we were blessed with my now almost 3-year-old son. And the whole thing really shifted again, like my mindset and my perspective. So I took the leap one more time and decided to leave the startup space, which again, as I've kind of like formed our life here together, went back to corporate, climbed the corporate ladder, and I just kind of like have that feeling in my gut that I know my life as a startup operator will not work anymore with this baby in tow. It's just not sustainable for me to be working 14, 16 hours a day doing calls from across the coast and things like that. So for the first year when I had my son, I paused my career and really had that time with him because I truly believe, and now I am very glad that I had that opportunity and was able to do it because it's truly real what they say that the nights are long but the years are short. It's really kind of like a realization for me as a parent. But then during that year, a lot of things have also happened and I've met so many parents here in Jersey City with the same kind of not really problem, but like a challenge of like, number one, a space for them to progress in their career while still being present for their family, for their kids, and also for immigrants like me, finding that community where you'll have that meeting space that you kind of like meet people as, like find your way around or assimilate to a new culture, or if you're building your business, finding the right connection and network. And with my background, that really kind of like inspired me to start Narra Collective, which is an over 11,000 square foot of co-working and community space in the heart of Jersey City. And we've been in operation for more than a year now. And it's been amazing. Obviously, it has not been, rainbows and butterflies all throughout the way. There has definitely been ups and downs and a lot of challenges to get to where we are right now, especially as a bootstrap founder, and just kind of like finding our way and experimenting with different kind of like models and what works, what's not working, and tweaking here and there to really develop a thriving and active community that is Narra right now.
What a story, what a journey. I'm sure there are huge culture differences from the Philippines to here. What has been the biggest one that has shocked you the most?
I would say as far as career or in professional setting, one thing that really kind of like shocked me is that back in the Philippines, if you are part of the team, if you're in a company, you're very much connected. Like your coworker is kind of like, your lunch buddy, or like you hang out, go for drinks after work, which is kind of like different when I first started working here because everything is professional. You kind of have that level that you keep to yourself. And it's just not as, I would say, close knit compared to what I'm used to career wise or professional wise, or in a setting like an office back home. So that's also been one of the inspiration behind creating Nara, is to have that sense of community that really got your back, especially for entrepreneurs. Because for me, when I was starting, obviously this is the first time I've been in startups, and I've, like supported founders in different stages in the startup space. But this is really the first time when I'm starting something of my own. And it's almost like throwing spaghetti on the wall and see what sticks, especially for the first year or so. There's a lot of experimenting. And a part of the reason also is that being in commercial real estate space, there's been a lot of times when I find myself being the only woman or person of color in the room. So it comes with, like a different, how do you present yourself so that like people take you seriously? Because again, one big part of my story, why I am very passionate about what I do, is that to even get to the physical space that we have right now, it took 104 no's from landlords and developers and real estate agents before someone finally said yes. Because at that time, I was a stay-at-home mom. I come to landlords and I find that they don't really take me seriously or wouldn't even be gracious to show me the space because what they see is a mom that has a hobby, like trying to get the keys to the building. So that was like an eye opener. And it took, 104 no's before I got to one yes. But I feel like I wouldn't take it any other way because right now with, like the culture, the community, the people that we've had at Narra and the community that we've been, nourishing, all those 104 no's are definitely worth it for me.
Wow, what a story. How did you get to, was it 105?
Yes,
And
exactly.
how did you get that? Yes. What was that? Well, looking back now, what was that thing that you brought to the table and how did you position it?
Along the way, what I really learned, and again, I'm very grateful for my background, is that when you try to present yourself and, your plan to landlords or partners or lenders, for example, it's really important that you know your numbers. And this is something that I say and I teach entrepreneurs whenever I have dialogues with them. I feel like more than anything, that's really the foundation that you need to start with is to know your numbers, know your targets, know your goals, know your why, and what value you are trying to build. Because there could be, different co-working spaces in this town within the neighborhood, but really you have to be very clear about like how you will make the model work money wise, finance wise. How are you going to support it? Do you even have enough runway to support it? And do you have that grit to be able to handle a lot of challenges, a lot of unknowns along the way? Because nothing will be perfect, and waiting perfect is something that I also kind of like give emphasis to. If you have, a business model, or if you have an idea that you've done your homework, you kind of like done some sort of analysis on how, you will make it sustainable, that is like a good foundation. But at the same time, being very mindful about the value that you're creating and the value that you're selling. Because at the end of the day, that's also what's going to set you apart in a market like co-working or flex space in general.
So how did you set yourself apart? I know that there is quite a bit that we have discussed about how you're so different and the way you approach it. Obviously, having gone through infertility and through all the struggles and coming to a new culture and all the background that you've had has provided the path forward for what you're doing today. Walk us through that. Walk us through the differentiator that sets you apart from other co-work spaces.
I would really narrow it down to three. Number one is we have the family friendly aspect. And that, as you could have known by now, has come from me being a mom. And my son Teddy has been a big inspiration in everything that I do. And people talk about the future of work and how the work is shifting and how it should look like. And for me, what the future of work really looks like is something that provides and gives you flexibility and not just anchored, within the square footage or within the walls of your office. You should be able to provide what people really need. And for parents, which is a big part of our demographic here in Jersey City and here at Narra, having that space where your kids could play, they could do their homework, for example, while the parents work nearby or take their phone calls in phone booths like where I am right now, is a big differentiator. So having that flexibility and that openness, so it's not frowned upon, is big. Because really, like if you look at our, a base here at Narra, about 60% of our members are parents. So that's a big kind of like thing. The second one is hospitality. And it's such a buzzword right now in the flex space industry. But to me, as a Filipino, it's almost like innate and it runs in my blood that, we like to welcome people and we are warm and we are hospitable profitable. But when you walk through the door, like we don't just see someone as a number that adds to our membership. So like we make it to a point to, like catch up with our guest, know your name, and if you're an entrepreneur, how everything is going around your business. Is there any way we can support you, or is there anyone that we can introduce you to within the Narra community to take you to the next step? So that's like a big focus for us. And then the third one would be culture. Because like you've mentioned, Jersey City is the most diverse city in whole of United States. And for us, it's almost like why people come to us and how our brand is being known in the community. Because not only it is, not only do we provide flexible workspace solution for everyone, but for those that are kind of like wanting to connect to their roots, to the community, to the different culture that's within Narra, because also we are 80% of our members are BIPOC. So it's kind of like just comes naturally, and people feel safe and people are eager to learn from different cultures. So those are the things that we are very proud to have cultivated, and we are very grateful to be flourishing within the community.
Wow. You said 80% of your members are what?
Are BIPOC. So meaning most of them are immigrants, people of color. So it's very diverse.
Wow. Amazing. So how did you go? I mean, it's been a year now since Nara's been open. How did you go from zero to booked out, or did it take time to get that occupancy? What does that look like?
It definitely took time. It's a slow burn, especially as, again, like as a bootstrap business, because unlike other co-working space owners, I could only use so much of my own funds to kind of like run marketing and different campaigns and build a brand. But what really worked for Narra for the past few years is that we try to, because again, like if looking at the team, so there's me and two other team members that are on site and one team member that's offshore. So it's a very lean team. And with that and taking that into consideration, we have to be very strategic and mindful on what campaigns and strategies we are rolling out so that we are able to keep obviously our overhead within reasonable cost, but also make way to be a profitable and sustainable business. So for us in the beginning, that means, to give you kind of like an overview, we have 12 private offices within Narra. We have a conference room and about 33 desks plus social lounges within the space. So our main strategy in the beginning is to really fill those offices and to kind of like put together pricing model so that, most of the revenue is coming from the offices that will be able to cover most of our overhead. Because as you could have imagined, running a brick and mortar, especially with something like an 11,000 square foot, it comes with big overhead, especially when it comes to rent, having a traditional lease. It also comes with almost firing on all cylinders, if you may. So like one of it is like understanding your product mix. And that definitely took time before we understand what people really need, what people are really gravitating towards to, and different campaigns to also be a known and trusted brand. So for us, that means we optimize for having a lot of in-person events and tours and just getting people through the door. Because the moment that they walk through the door and they see the space, they see the culture that is going on within the four walls of Narra, they are more likely to stay and they're more likely to be part of it. So we've been having very good success in terms of, having in-person events and tours. So looking at the numbers, once again, we know that we have a 70% tour to member conversion. That's why that's one of the things that we optimize for. And then down the line, we've tried to have this open dialogue with our members on what's working as far as what events do they want, what's creating value for them, what is not working. And from there, kind of like tweaking it day by day. But also as we move forward, and again, it ties back to really knowing the numbers and what your revenue goals are, seeing how we can stack our different revenue streams. So we started with, again, like filling up the private private offices, then we would double down on the desks and reserve desks. And now what we really trying to roll out is more virtual offerings as well as memberships for the use of our event space for those practitioners or organizations that need a home base but doesn't or is not willing to commit yet to a full-time lease, if you will.
Talk to us more about your other revenue streams. You said virtual as well. I know that you also mentioned kitchen space, I believe, last time that we spoke. How do you really drive revenue and create that ROI? I love that you're tracking that it's a 70% conversion rate. That's huge. I think that that really ties in well to everything that I scream about, which is
Yeah.
right, that perceived value equates to actual value. And when somebody sees and can experience the space in person, not just virtually, there will be a conversion, right?
Absolutely.
And repeat business and all of that. So talk to us about those revenue drivers.
Definitely right now, the biggest driver is our private suites. And we are happy to have all our private suites occupied. So we are at 100% private suite occupancy, and we have 18 people on our active wait list, which is amazing because that kind of like gives us, a steady flow of people that are on our call list if in any case someone is to leave, which we don't see happening a lot. Like the turnover, our churn is about, I would say, 8%, 7% per month, which is a good indicator that, we're cultivating a good culture and values that people would want to be part of. The next one would be actually event space and meeting spaces. And again, tying back to our unique selling point being that we are family friendly, child friendly. So we host a lot of after school programs, for example, during the afternoons when, the occupancy, the utilization of our conference room are lower compared to the daytime, and during weekends as well, or summer program for kids. And we've created a way to build membership around that so that, we have base rates for like one-off bookings of event spaces and meeting rooms. But for mission aligned organizations and companies, we offer them a specialized membership so that they can call Narra their home base within the community and be able to host their network, their community, the children within their class, for example. We are also, the next would be obviously like the hot desk and the premium desk. So that's a good driver as well, especially knowing what these people in that segment really looks for. So we know that for someone that needs a hot desk or a reserve desk, they are here because they want to meet people. They are potentially first-time entrepreneurs that wanted to learn from people and experts within Narra. So we try not just to offer the desk, but a program so that they are continually plugged and learning as they come through the space. And that also proved how we move them up in the membership, if you will, because we keep everything very flexible and dependent on where you are on your journey. And the more we kind of like curate, not just, like desks and wall again, but a program for them to learn, to network, and to build their own community, the more they are to stay and the more we are able to kind of like offer them something of value at a higher price point, for example.
So what are the challenges that you've faced along this bootstrap journey that have kind of shaped where you are now a year in? And how would you do things differently if you had to start over again, or if you were going to get a second location?
I mentioned about the 104 no's, so that was hard. At some point, I tried to like question my sanity if it's even worth it. Because even when we got the lease, for example, when I got the yes from this landlord, it took another half a year before we put that ink on the paper because of the different back and forth. Again, because tying back, because I wanted to be child friendly and I wanted to be, a thriving community. So that came with a lot of cost, with the security deposit that they asked, or the insurances, the security cameras, the build out and things like that. So tying back to that, and this is something also that I share very openly because I think it's kind of like, it's a big part of the story. But to get to opening Narra, I had to bootstrap it and put in the funds for $238,000 of my own money. And that's such a big big gamble. And at some point, my husband would be asking me, like, are you sure about this? And I'm like, hell yeah, because I really believe that there is a need for this in the community. And then there's the number 8. 8 days after opening Narra, I ended up in an operating room table because of a ruptured appendix. And I was like, this has got to be a bad omen. Because at that time I was having, like lots of back pain and like not feeling myself. And I thought it was just probably a strain from like assembling furniture or moving things around. And apparently it was a ruptured appendix. And I have to go through 2 surgeries and I have to be doing tours. I will never forget this because of like what happened. I have tubes literally straight out of my belly. And during the first few months, I can't afford to hire a full-time staff because the 238,000 got me to opening the door, but I only have so much fund left that I have to be very mindful of to give us enough runway until we can make profit. So there was one time when I have to send my staff home because she was only doing half day and I was here all alone and at some point literally scrubbing the bathrooms to be able to conserve on, like staffing costs. So things like that have been a big part of the journey, but looking back, it was all worth it because now we are on our first 100 members and it's been very much alive with, like conversations and networks and the impact that we've built. And we've done this through our year-end report. But to me, I think what I'm most proud of is the impact that is proven by stats from the members and the companies within Narra and how their own companies grow. So for example, we have one member that 4x their headcount while being at Narra. We have another company that had 400x the revenue within the span of a year because now they have a home base to be able to expand their operations. We've done 100 plus introductions that lead to, collaboration or coaches being hired by someone through networking events that we curate, and 85 speakers have graced our stage that have really provided them with a platform for them to be known within the community on what they do. So things like that have been very fulfilling and we are very proud of what we have achieved in a short span of time. And it took a lot of resilience and experimenting and trial and error, but it was all worth it in the end.
What a story. Talk about bootstrapping. You certainly did that through and through. I remember when I was in college, I was so nauseous with my second and I came in with IV drips, 2 of them. Right? Like when you want something, you just do it. Nothing will stop you from executing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a thing that drives you. And, like I call Narra my second baby, I guess, because, it's one thing to have Teddy and see him grow, but also seeing Narra grow into what it is right now is something that I feel very passionate about. And I'm very proud of it.
So how would you do things differently if you had to start over again or if you wanted to expand to a new location?
I guess right now, again, talking about the numbers, for example, our waitlist, I would have built more offices because now I'm finding that's really, what's in demand in the market right now. So we're definitely have our eyes on expansion and how we can kind of like grow and replicate the business model into another location or within the community because we see the need. And there are things in the beginning that we did, especially around our family-friendly programming. So in the beginning, we were doing it our own. And we found that, number one, it is very time-consuming to do the marketing and it's not really giving us a lot of ROI, so to speak. So we pivoted. And that's one thing that I think as an entrepreneur, you also have to learn. I always tell my team, pivoting is good and pivoting is our love letter to people's feedback. And that's what we did. So in the beginning, we were doing, for example, music classes for kids ourselves, not really working and not really giving a lot of ROI. Hence, we pivoted so that now we work with organizations who rents our space or became our members to be able to do these programming for the kids. And it's still a win-win because we're able to make the model sustainable and we are still being true to the value and the offerings that we promised the community.
What about the people using your space? What has been the impact on them in terms of, you mentioned financially, but also in terms of community? I know that there's also, I believe you mentioned a large Filipino community as well that you're servicing. What has been the impact on that and just the emotional ROI of things?
Yeah, those are definitely a big part, I believe, of our success and how our brand is being known to the community right now, because there is a big Filipino community within Narra. I believe about 60% of our members are Filipinos. And I guess that just came naturally because in the beginning, I was very unsure how to market and I am dipping my toes, like whether we should really move forward with that route. And I hit I floored on it and like almost really became our focus area and it worked. And now we host quarterly community events for Filipinos and non-Filipinos where more than hundreds of people come in to meet people and to build community because, again, going back to my experience, there's not really a physical space where you can connect and share your stories and share your journey, especially as a business owner. So through these mixers or karaoke nights or events that we curate, people are able to connect. And there was a moment when a member who is a second generation immigrant from the Philippines came crying to me because she said that for the longest time, she just felt very disconnected to our culture because she grew up here. She wasn't really surrounded by Filipinos, or there's really not that physical space where you can meet tons and tons of Filipinos or people that share the culture until Narra. And that to me has been very valuable and speaks volume to what we do. There is also a very big and thriving community around moms. So we curate and partner with different mom organizations to support what they need and where they are at in their stage of journey. So we have a mompreneur group, again, with hundreds of moms within that community that meets every month so that we could really curate and provide a space for them to support each other or learn from each other's journey. Another one is because I used to be a stay-at-home mom, so that will always hold a special place in my heart. And I truly believe that, being a stay-at-home mom, being a full-time mom is probably one of the hardest jobs in the planet that you could ever imagine because you would be just 24/7 on and your boss is very demanding. You don't know when the next order or need will arise. So you just always have to be on your toes. So we also provide a regular meeting for them to support each other and to have that open dialogue on, how each mom's journey is coming along. And actually now it has expanded because the dads also started to join the group. So now it's more, we call this group Parent Pause for stay-at-home parents to connect, share their experiences and see how you can support each other or how you can just kind of have friends within the neighborhood.
I love that. I wish that I had something like that, like a workspace or support group or community when I was first starting my business or first started having my kids. So kudos to you. I would love to know how the design impacted attracting people to the space and challenges that you might have faced with that and how you overcame.
The space is, I would say, intentionally designed in terms of the zones and how we curate each of the segments, considering especially that we have kids on site, particularly in the afternoons. You walk in and then we have the suites where, companies and their teams would have their private offices as well as private desks. And then we have a particular zone, which is a social lounge, and adjacent to it is 33 desks, which are our hot desk zones, so that there is that flexible membership. If they need, a proper workstation, they have that. But also if they wanted to have lunch or coffee or have kind of like a social atmosphere. We have that as well. And then towards the end of the space is the kitchen, and adjacent to it is the kids zone and a family lounge, we call it. So it's kind of like a space where kids can play while their parents can work nearby. And it works very well because we find that even though we are kid friendly, it doesn't really create too much interruption for other people that are actually deep in their work, because there is, like enough space for people to kind of like move around depending on the day of the week or the occupancy. If they need a space for a quiet work, then we will be able to provide that for them. And if they need a place to socialize or hang out or be with their kids, then there is that particular space for them as well. So it's definitely built by design. And so far, we're happy that we see it working for everyone.
Amazing. Amazing. So what is in the future? I know you touched on that a little bit, but 3, 5, 10 years from now, what does Narra look like?
Right now, what been really focusing on, I already mentioned about the expansion and our goals to, replicate the space into another location. But I think this year and the years to come is also about impact for us, because again, we wanted the impact to be more than the four walls of Narra. So actually right now we are on the process of coming up and putting together a nonprofit under Narra. And basically the goal is to solve 3 problems for entrepreneurs, or to support them in 3 ways. So number 1 is access to a safe space like Narra, physical space where you can do your work. The second one is access to capital through our partners in the corporate industry. And number 3 is access to network through the networking opportunities and informational sessions that we provide. So through the Narra Collective Foundation, which we are hoping to launch in the next few months, we are hoping that we will be able to work with our existing partners to sponsor their access to the space, but also provide them with the tools, the resources, so that entrepreneurs will be equipped with the knowledge base that they need to be able to run a sustainable business.
Amazing. That's so exciting. Are there any questions you wish I would have asked you that I didn't?
Nothing really. I think you did a fantastic job.
Amazing. I want to make sure that we're covering all of our bases and that we're able to share your story and your ROI learnings with our audience. Thank you so much for joining us, for telling us your journey through the challenges and through the wins. And we are all rooting for you and can't wait to see what you do next.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. And thank you so much for this opportunity.
Amazing. And if our audience would like to learn more about Narra, they want to get an office suite, how can they do that?
Absolutely. So definitely reach out to us through our email. That's hello@joinnarra.com, or visit our website, joinnarra.com, to learn more.
Amazing. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.